The smell of recycled air mixed with exotic spices filled the corridors of Meridian Hub as creatures from dozens of worlds conducted their daily business. Tom Bradley adjusted his worn backpack straps and tried not to stare at the eight-legged merchant selling glowing fruit to a creature that looked like walking crystal. 3 months ago, he had been fixing satellites in Earth orbit, and now here he was about to join an alien crew for a deep space mission, his assignment papers crinkled in his pocket as he walked toward Docking Bay 7. The Galactic Council had decided that human perspectives might be valuable for exploration missions, and Tom had volunteered without really knowing what he was getting into. His engineering background and military survival training had apparently made him a good candidate, though he still felt completely out of place among beings who could manipulate gravity with their thoughts or communicate through color changes. In their skin, the Starweaver came into view through the transparent aluminum viewport, and Tom whistled softly. The ship looked like someone had grown it rather than built it with smooth organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift color in the station lighting. A far cry from the angular metal boxes humans called spaceships, but he had to admit it was beautiful in an alien way. "You must be the human," came a voice behind him. Tom turned to see a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. The creature wore what looked like a uniform made of liquid metal that moved like water but held its shape perfectly. "I am Captain Thrix of the Vorthan Exploration Fleet. Welcome aboard my vessel, though. I confess I am curious why the Council believes we need a human perspective on our mission." Tom extended his hand in the human greeting he had been told most. "Species understood. Tom Bradley, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to serve with your crew. I know humans are pretty new to all this, but I promise to do my best not to get in the way." Captain Thrix looked at the offered hand for a moment before reaching out with one of his 4 arms to clasp it briefly. "Yes, well, we shall see. Come. Let me introduce you to the others and show you to your quarters. I trust you have everything you need in that rather primitive-looking bag of yours." The captain gestured at Tom's backpack with what might have been amusement. The bag was indeed old and worn with patches sewn over tiers and straps that had been repaired multiple times. Compared to the sleek storage devices the other crew members carried, it looked like something from a museum. "This old thing has been with me through a lot of missions," Tom said, patting the bag fondly. "It might not look like much, but it gets the job done." "I am sure it does," Captain Thrix replied in a tone that suggested he was not sure at all. "Though I confess I am surprised. Humans have not yet discovered dimensional storage technology. That bag appears to be made of actual fabric and leather. How quaint." They walked through the ship's corridors, which were filled with soft bioluminescent lighting that seemed to respond to their presence. Other crew members they passed looked at Tom with undisguised curiosity. Some whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or clicking sounds or combinations of both. The ship's common area was a large, circular room with what looked like living walls covered in patterns that moved slowly like breathing. Several crew members were gathered around a table that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the walking merchant Tom had seen earlier. "Everyone, this is Tom Bradley, our human cultural liaison," Captain Thrix announced. "Tom, these are your crewmates. Click is our chief engineer." He gestured to an insect-like being with multiple arms ending in precise manipulator tools. "Prism handles navigation, this time indicating a translucent crystalline creature that sparkled with internal light. And Moss manages our life support systems," finishing with what appeared to be a small walking tree. Each being acknowledged Tom in their own way. Click made a rapid clicking sound, while Prism flashed different colors through their crystal body. Moss rustled their leaves in what Tom hoped was a friendly manner. "Interesting backpack human," Click said in accented but clear speech. "Very retro styling. Does it have antigrav compensators or at least basic mass reduction fields?" "Neither, actually," Tom replied. "Just canvas leather and good old-fashioned human engineering." The crew exchanged what Tom was learning to recognize as the universal expression for polite disbelief. Captain Thrix made a sound that might have been laughter. "You mean you actually carry the full weight of your supplies?" Prism asked, their voice sounding like wind chimes. How inefficient. My storage matrix can hold the equivalent of a small building while weighing less than air, while this bag has carried everything I need through jungle swamps, desert storms, and mountain climbs back on Earth, Tom said, trying not to sound defensive. Sometimes simple is better than complicated. Simple, certainly, Captain Thrix agreed. Though I wonder what happens when simple meets the challenges of deep space exploration. No matter, we shall see soon enough. Click, please show Tom to his quarters and help him understand our ship systems. We depart for the Outer Rim in 6 hours. As they walked toward the crew quarters, Click chittered in what Tom was beginning to understand was amusement. No offense, human Tom, but that bag looks like it belongs in a historical display. My people abandoned such crude carrying methods thousands of years ago when we discovered how to fold space around objects. Maybe so, Tom replied, adjusting the familiar weight on his shoulders, but this old bag has never let me down yet. Let us hope for all our sakes that it does not start now, Click replied with what definitely sounded like skepticism. Tom just smiled and followed the insectoid engineer deeper into the ship. He had heard doubt before from people who judged his gear by its appearance rather than its capability. Time would tell whether his human approach to equipment would prove useful among the stars, or if he really was as primitive as his new crewmates seemed to think. Red emergency lights bathed the Starweaver's command center as the urgent distress signal crackled through the communication system. Tom had been trying to understand the ship's waste recycling systems when the alarm started, and now he found himself watching Captain Thrix's 4 arms dance across control surfaces with practiced efficiency. Signal origin confirmed as Research Station Beta 7 on planet designation Kepler 7. Prism announced their crystalline form, flashing urgent orange patterns. Electromagnetic storm activity is interfering with transmission quality, but I am detecting at least 12 life signs in distress. What is their situation? Captain Thrix demanded as he pulled up holographic displays showing a green and brown planet wreathed in swirling storm clouds. Click's manipulator arms worked frantically at the engineering console. From what I can decode, they experienced catastrophic equipment failure during a geological survey mission. Their shelter systems collapsed and their water purification units are offline. They have been stranded for approximately 72 hours. Kepler 7, Moss rustled nervously. I have read reports about that world. The electromagnetic storms there are severe enough to disrupt most standard technology. The planet's mineral composition creates interference patterns that can shut down anything relying on quantum field manipulation. Tom watched the tactical display as more information appeared about their destination. The planet looked deceptively peaceful from orbit, but the readouts told a different story. Atmospheric composition barely within breathable ranges for most species, native wildlife classified as aggressive. Weather patterns dominated by electrical storms that could last for weeks. How long until we reach them? Captain Thrix asked. At maximum speed, approximately 18 hours, Prism replied. However, I must warn you that prolonged exposure to the planet's electromagnetic environment will likely affect our own systems. Extended operations on the surface could result in critical equipment failures. Understood, but we cannot leave a research team to die because the environment is inconvenient, the captain said firmly. Prepare the rescue shuttle and select essential personnel for the away mission. We go and fast extract the survivors and get out before our equipment fails completely. Click clicked in what Tom had learned indicated concern. Sir, our standard survival gear relies heavily on quantum field technology. If the planet's interference is as severe as reported, we may find ourselves in the same situation as the stranded team. Then we had better make sure we succeed quickly, Captain Thrix replied. Tom, since you are our cultural liaison, this might be a good opportunity for you to observe how we handle emergency situations. Unless you think your primitive bag there contains something that might actually be useful. The words were said lightly, but Tom could hear the underlying stress in the captain's voice. I would be honored to assist in any way possible, sir. Very well, then. Everyone prepare for immediate departure to Kepler 7. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity as the crew prepared for what everyone hoped would be a routine rescue mission. Tom spent the time studying everything he could about Kepler-7's environment and the research team they were trying to save. The more he read, the more concerned he became about what they might find when they arrived. The planet's atmosphere contained high levels of various gases that could affect judgment and motor skills in prolonged exposure. The native plant life included several species that produced airborne toxins. The electromagnetic storms were not just inconvenient, they were powerful enough to induce dangerous electrical currents in metallic objects and disrupt the neural patterns of most alien species. When they finally dropped out of faster than light travel near Kepler-7, the situation proved even worse than expected. The research station's automated beacon was transmitting on emergency power only, and long-range sensors showed massive storm systems covering most of the planet's surface. I am detecting the crashed research vessel approximately 2 kilometers from the original landing site, Prism reported. It appears to have been struck by lightning multiple times and suffered severe structural damage. Life signs? Captain Thrix asked tersely. Still reading 12 survivors, but their shelter appears to be failing. Energy signatures suggest their life support systems are operating on backup power only. How long do we have? Tom asked. Based on power consumption rates, I estimate they have perhaps 6 to 8 hours before complete system failure, Click replied, assuming the storms do not worsen. As if summoned by the engineer's words, another massive electrical discharge lit up the planet's night side, visible even from orbit. The Starweaver's own systems flickered momentarily as residual electromagnetic energy reached them. That settles it, Captain Thrix decided. We take the shuttle down immediately. Click Prism. Tom, you are with me. Moss, maintain orbit and be ready for emergency extraction if our communications fail. Sir, Tom said carefully. If I may suggest something. Given the electromagnetic interference, would it be wise to rely entirely on our high-tech equipment? Maybe we should consider bringing some backup systems that do not depend on quantum fields or complex electronics. Captain Thrix turned to look at him with something that might have been amusement. Are you suggesting, Tom, that your fabric bag contains technology superior to our molecular engineering? Not superior, sir, just different. Sometimes when complex systems fail, simple ones keep working. An interesting philosophy, the captain mused. Very well, bring whatever you think might be useful. Though I confess I cannot imagine what a primitive human bag could contain that our advanced systems cannot provide more efficiently. Click made a clicking sound that Tom was learning to interpret as skepticism. No offense, human, but we are about to attempt a rescue mission on one of the most hostile worlds in this sector. This is not the time to experiment with primitive technology. Maybe not, Tom agreed as he shouldered his worn backpack. But if our advanced technology fails completely, we might be glad to have some primitive alternatives available. As they boarded the rescue shuttle, Tom could feel the weight of his old bag against his shoulders. The familiar pressure was somehow comforting as they prepared to descend into the storm-racked atmosphere of Kepler-7. His crewmates might think his equipment was laughably outdated, but Tom had learned long ago that the best gear was not always the most advanced gear. It was the gear that still worked when everything else failed. The shuttle shook violently as another bolt of lightning struck its hull, and Tom watched sparks fly from several control panels as they descended through Kepler-7's turbulent atmosphere. Captain Thrix fought to maintain control while Prism's crystalline form flickered with erratic light patterns indicating their navigation systems were failing. Hull integrity holding, but our shields are down to 30%. Click reported as manipulator arms danced across backup controls. The electromagnetic interference is worse than projected. I am losing primary systems across multiple subsections. Through the viewports, Tom could see the planet's surface rushing up to meet them. Dense jungle stretched in every direction, broken only by rocky outcroppings and rivers that gleamed like metal in the constant lightning flashes. The landscape looked primordial and hostile, like something from Earth's distant past, but with an alien wrongness that made his skin crawl. There, Prism called out, their voice crackling with static interference. I detect the research team's emergency. Beacon bearing 27 Mark IV. Distance approximately 3 kilometers from our current position. The shuttle touched down harder than intended in a clearing barely large enough to accommodate its bulk. Ancient-looking trees pressed close on all sides, their twisted branches reaching toward the vessel like grasping fingers. The moment the engines shut down, an oppressive silence fell, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder and strange chittering sounds from the surrounding forest. Atmospheric analysis shows breathable air with minor toxin concentrations, Click announced. Temperature is within acceptable ranges, but humidity is extremely high. I recommend minimal exposure time to avoid respiratory complications. Captain. Thrick stood and checked his equipment pack. Very well. Emergency protocols are in effect. We locate the survivors, extract them, and return to orbit immediately. Any questions? They opened the shuttle's cargo bay, and immediately the air inside became thick and heavy with moisture. Strange smells filled Tom's nostrils as he stepped onto the planet's surface. The ground beneath his feet was spongy with decades of decomposing. Plant matter in his boots sank several inches with each step. This way, Prism said, pointing toward a gap in the tree line. The beacon signal is strongest in that direction. They had been walking for less than 10 minutes when Click's equipment pack began emitting warning sounds. My molecular tent is malfunctioning, the engineer announced with concern. The storage field is destabilizing. Might as well, Captain Thrick said grimly as his own pack flickered with unstable energy patterns. The electromagnetic interference is stronger than we anticipated. Tom watched as his crewmates' advanced equipment began failing one system at a time. Water purification units shut down without warning. Communication devices filled with static. Even their basic lighting systems started flickering as quantum field generators struggled against the planet's hostile environment. How much further? To the research team, the captain asked. Approximately 2 kilometers, Prism replied, but their voice was growing weaker as their own systems were affected. However, I am losing sensor resolution. The interference is increasing as we move deeper into the forest. They pushed forward through increasingly dense vegetation as the situation continued to deteriorate. The trees here were massive specimens that blocked most of the light from above, creating a perpetual twilight filled with strange sounds and moving shadows. Vines hung like cables between the trunks, and more than once Tom heard something large crashing through the underbrush nearby. There, Captain Thrix called out, pointing ahead. I can see artificial structures. The research team's camp was a disaster. What had once been a sophisticated base of operations was now a collection of collapsed shelters and sparking equipment scattered across a muddy clearing. Several figures in environmental suits were huddled around a single functioning power cell, while others lay motionless nearby. Medical emergency, Click announced, scanning the survivors with failing equipment. Multiple cases of atmospheric poisoning and severe dehydration. They need immediate treatment and clean water. Our medical supplies are in the shuttle, Captain. Thrick said, but first we need shelter for everyone. This clearing is too exposed and more storms are approaching. Tom looked around at the failing alien technology and the desperate faces of the research team survivors. His crewmates were doing their best, but their advanced systems were shutting down faster than they could adapt. It was time to see if human engineering could succeed where alien science was failing. Captain, he said quietly. Permission to try. What do you have in mind, Tom? Without answering, Tom knelt down and began unpacking his old backpack. His crewmates watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disbelief as he pulled out bundles of what looked like ordinary fabric and metal rods that had been carefully wrapped in protective covers. A tent, Click clicked dismissively. Human, you cannot seriously believe that primitive shelter technology will be superior to our molecular construction systems. Maybe not superior, Tom replied as he began laying out the tent components. But different. Your systems depend on quantum field manipulation, which the planet's electromagnetic storms are disrupting. This tent uses mechanical engineering principles that do not rely on any kind of field generation. As he worked, Tom could feel his crewmates watching skeptically, The tent did not assemble itself like their molecular shelters. Instead, he had to fit poles into sleeves, stretch fabric over frames, and secure everything with stakes and guy lines. It was slow work compared to alien instant assembly technology, but it was also reliable work that did not depend on anything more complex than leverage and tension. Interesting, Captain Thrix admitted as the tent took shape. It is certainly larger than it appeared when packed. That is just the beginning, Tom said as he pulled more items from his bag. This is a water filtration system. He showed them what looked like a simple pump with several attached containers. It uses mechanical filtration and chemical treatment to purify water from any source. No quantum fields, no exotic materials, just physics and chemistry. Prism's crystalline form flickered with weak light. You carried all of this equipment in that small bag. Multi-purpose design, Tom explained as he continued unpacking. Every item serves several functions and most components can be reconfigured for different uses. The tent poles become part of the water system. The fabric can be repositioned for different shelter configurations. Even the backpack frame has multiple uses. As if to demonstrate his point, Tom showed them how the tent's rainfly could be extended to create a much larger covered area. How the support poles could be rearranged to make stretchers for the injured survivors. How rope and fabric could be combined to create hammocks and additional sleeping areas. Remarkable, Captain Thrix said as he watched the simple materials transform into a complete survival system. Your equipment is not failing despite the electromagnetic interference. No moving parts to jam, no fields to disrupt, Tom said as he began setting up the water purification system. Just good old-fashioned human engineering designed to work anywhere under any conditions. For the first time since landing on Kepler 7, his alien crewmates looked at his worn backpack with something other than amusement. Rain began falling in heavy sheets as Tom finished assembling the expanded shelter system that now covered most of the research team's ruined camp. The steady drumming of water on fabric created a surprisingly peaceful sound that seemed to calm both the alien survivors and his own crewmates, who were still adjusting to the reality that primitive human technology was outperforming their sophisticated equipment. Dr. Kell, the research team's leader, was a tall reptilian being whose scales had turned a sickly yellow color from atmospheric poisoning. She watched Tom work with growing amazement as he demonstrated how his simple water filtration system could transform the contaminated stream water into something perfectly safe to drink. This is incredible, she wheezed through her damaged respiratory system. Our molecular purification units failed within hours of the first electromagnetic pulse, but your device continues functioning normally. No electronics to disrupt, Tom explained as he handed her a cup of clean water. Just mechanical pumps, chemical filters, and basic physics. The same principles humans have been using to purify water for thousands of years. Captain Thrix approached, carrying what remained of his own equipment pack. Most of the sophisticated alien technology inside was now completely dead, leaving only basic emergency supplies that did not rely on advanced systems. Tom, I owe you an apology. When I saw your backpack, I assumed it represented primitive technology that we had evolved beyond. I was wrong. Not wrong, Captain, just thinking about the problem differently. Tom replied as he began setting up what looked like a simple cooking system. Your technology is incredibly advanced and in most situations probably far superior to anything humans have developed. But it is also specialized for specific conditions, and when those conditions change, it becomes vulnerable. Click approached with one of their manipulator arms partially damaged from trying to repair failed equipment. Explain to me how this cooking system functions. I see no power source, no heating elements, no molecular excitation fields. Tom smiled as he showed the insectoid engineer how the small portable stove used chemical fuel tablets to generate heat through simple combustion. Fire was humanity's first technology, and we never forgot how useful it can be. This stove will work in any atmosphere that contains oxygen regardless of electromagnetic interference or power availability. Fascinating, Click clicked thoughtfully. Your species maintained parallel development tracks. Advanced technology for optimal conditions and primitive backup systems for when advanced technology fails. We learned the hard way that complex systems break at the worst possible times, Tom said as he began preparing food for the survivors. So we kept the simple systems around as insurance. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, especially when you are fighting for survival. As the day progressed, Tom continued demonstrating the versatility of his equipment. The tent fabric could be reconfigured to collect rainwater, create solar stills for additional water purification, or form windbreaks to protect the injured survivors. The support ropes became clotheslines to dry wet gear or lashing to secure loose equipment against the increasingly violent storms. Even more impressive to his alien crewmates was Tom's knowledge of basic survival techniques that did not require any equipment at all. He showed them how to identify edible plants among the alien species, how to build effective shelters using only natural materials, and how to treat injuries using basic first aid techniques when their medical scanners failed. On Earth, humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us, Tom explained as he demonstrated how to start a fire using friction alone. Ice ages, predators, disease, natural disasters. We learned to adapt to survive with whatever resources were available. Those instincts never left us even after we reached the stars. Prism's crystalline form had stabilized somewhat as they absorbed energy from Tom's artificial lighting. Your species developed redundancy at every level, not just backup equipment, but backup skills, backup knowledge, backup instincts. Exactly, Tom said as he finished treating Dr. Kell's respiratory symptoms, using basic medications from his first aid kit. We never trusted any single system completely because we knew from experience that everything eventually fails. The key to survival is having multiple solutions for every problem. By the second day on Kepler 7, Tom's simple shelter had evolved into a complete survival base that housed all 15 members of the combined rescue and research teams. His water system was producing clean drinking water faster than they could consume it. His food preparation area was turning local plant materials into nutritious meals that even the alien biologies could safely digest. Most importantly, his equipment was still functioning perfectly while every piece of advanced alien technology had either failed completely or was operating at severely reduced capacity. I am beginning to understand something about human psychology, Captain Thrick said as he watched Tom teach Click how to repair damaged gear using basic hand tools and scavenged materials. Your species expects failure and prepares for it accordingly. We expect success and are unprepared when it does not occur. Maybe that is why the Galactic Council wanted human perspectives on exploration missions, Tom suggested. Not because we have better technology, but because we have different approaches to problem solving. When your molecular engineering fails, maybe it helps to have someone around who remembers how to tie knots and start fires. Indeed, the captain agreed, though I confess to feeling somewhat embarrassed that our advanced civilization requires lessons in primitive survival from a species that achieved spaceflight only 50 years ago. Tom looked around at the thriving camp that had been built using nothing more than human ingenuity and thousand-year-old survival techniques. Captain, with respect, there is nothing primitive about survival. Staying alive when everything goes wrong is one of the most sophisticated skills any species can develop. We just approach it differently than you do. As if to emphasize his point, another massive lightning strike hit nearby, sending electrical discharges racing across the ground and causing the few remaining alien devices to spark and shut down permanently. Tom's mechanical equipment continued operating without interruption, and his fire kept burning steadily in its stone-lined pit. Different indeed, Captain Thrix murmured as he watched the human technology prove once again that sometimes the simplest solutions were also the most reliable. The third day brought new challenges as several of the research team members developed severe reactions to prolonged exposure to the planet's toxic atmosphere. Their medical equipment had failed completely, leaving them with no way to treat the worsening symptoms. Tom opened his first aid kit and began treating patients with basic medications and techniques that required no power source or sophisticated diagnostic equipment, He showed Captain Thrix how to create makeshift stretchers using tent poles and Fabric how to monitor vital signs without electronic sensors and how to prepare herbal remedies from local plants that could ease respiratory distress. The alien captain found himself learning skills that his species had abandoned millennia ago in favor of advanced medical technology. "Your knowledge base is remarkably broad," the captain observed as Tom demonstrated proper bandaging techniques. "You seem equally comfortable with mechanical engineering, emergency medicine, botanical science, and materials fabrication. Cross-training," Tom explained as he prepared a natural antibiotic paste from tree bark. "Humans learned early that specialists are vulnerable when they encounter problems outside their expertise. So we maintained generalist skills even as we developed advanced specializations. Every human soldier learns basic medical training. Every engineer understands fundamental chemistry. Every scientist knows how to survive in the wilderness." "Redundancy again," Prism said weakly from where they lay recovering their energy. "Your species builds multiple capabilities into every individual just as you build multiple functions into every tool." "That is one way to look at it," Tom agreed. "We call it being prepared for anything because we learned that anything can happen and usually does at the worst possible moment." By the fourth day, Tom had turned the crash site into a functioning base camp that could have sustained the survivors indefinitely if necessary. His equipment had proven its worth dozens of times over, and his skills had saved lives that would have been lost without his intervention. More importantly, his alien crewmates had begun to understand that human approaches to technology and survival represented sophisticated thinking rather than primitive limitations. The rescue was no longer just about getting everyone off Kepler-7 alive. It had become a lesson in the value of different perspectives and the wisdom of maintaining multiple solutions to every problem. The rescue shuttle rose slowly through Kepler-7's storm-racked atmosphere, carrying all 15 survivors safely back to the orbiting Starweaver. Tom sat quietly in the cargo section, watching his alien crewmates examine pieces of his equipment. With the kind of reverence usually reserved for ancient artifacts or revolutionary scientific discoveries, Dr. Kell held Tom's folding knife with careful fascination, turning it over in her scaled hands as she examined each of its multiple functions. "Blade, saw, screwdriver, all can opener wire strippers," she counted. 17 different tools in a single compact unit, and not one component requires external power or quantum field manipulation. The human approach appears to emphasize multifunctionality over specialization. Prism observed as they studied a length of paracord that Tom had shown could be disassembled into dozens of individual threads for fishing line sutures or emergency repairs. Each item serves multiple purposes, allowing for adaptation to unforeseen circumstances. Click was particularly interested in Tom's manual tools, which had proven invaluable for repairing damaged equipment when their molecular manufacturing systems failed. These implements require physical effort to operate, but they are also immune to electromagnetic interference and mechanical failure modes that affect our technology. Captain Thrix listened to the discussion as he piloted the shuttle toward the mothership. The rescue mission had been successful beyond all expectations, but it had also forced him to reconsider many assumptions about technological advancement and the relationship between complexity and reliability. "Tom," he said as they docked with the Starweaver, "I owe you more than an apology. Without your equipment and knowledge, we would likely have lost the entire research team. Your primitive bag, as I so foolishly called it, proved more valuable than all our advanced systems combined." "It is not about primitive versus advanced, Captain," Tom replied as he carefully repacked his gear. "It is about choosing the right tool for the job. Your technology is incredible, and in normal conditions, it would have been far superior to anything I carry. But Kepler-7 was not normal conditions." "No, indeed it was not," the captain agreed. "Which raises an interesting question. How did your species know to maintain these backup capabilities when other civilizations abandoned such approaches in favor of more sophisticated alternatives?" Tom thought about the question as he secured his backpack for the journey back to Meridian Hub. I think it comes from our history, Captain. Humanity spent most of its existence struggling to survive on a world that was often hostile to life. We learned that the environment could change without warning and that technology could fail at the worst possible moment. So you developed parallel systems? Prism said. Advanced technology for optimal performance and simple technology for survival scenarios. Exactly. We never completely trusted any single approach because experience taught us that everything eventually breaks or wears out or encounters conditions it was not designed for. The key was having alternatives available when the primary systems failed. As they rejoined the Starweaver, Tom found himself surrounded by curious crew members who wanted to examine his equipment and hear about the rescue mission. Word had spread quickly through the ship that the humans' primitive gear had succeeded, where advanced alien technology had failed. Is it true that your tent can be reconfigured into 12 different shelter types? Asked Zara, the ship's communications officer. And that your water filter requires no power source whatsoever. True on both counts, Tom confirmed. The tent uses modular design principles that allow the components to be rearranged for different purposes. The water filter uses gravity mechanical pressure and chemical treatment to purify water from any source. Remarkable, murmured Dr. Vale, the ship's science officer. Your equipment philosophy appears to prioritize reliability and versatility over efficiency and performance. Not over efficiency, Tom corrected, alongside efficiency. In ideal conditions, your molecular tent probably sets up faster and provides better climate control than mine. But when conditions are not ideal, when the power fails or the quantum fields are disrupted, my tent will still keep you alive. Captain Thrix called for attention as the ship prepared to depart Kepler-7's orbit. Before we return to our original mission, I want to acknowledge Tom's contribution to our successful rescue operation. His equipment knowledge and skills proved invaluable and demonstrated that there is wisdom in approaches we had perhaps too quickly dismissed as outdated. Sir, if I may, Tom said, I would like to suggest that this experience offers learning opportunities for all of us. I learned a great deal about advanced alien technology during this mission, and I think there are ways to combine human and alien approaches that might be superior to either one alone. An interesting proposal, the captain replied. What did you have in mind? Cross-training, Tom suggested. Your crew could learn basic survival skills and manual techniques as backup capabilities for when advanced systems fail. In return, I could learn to use and maintain your sophisticated equipment so I can contribute more effectively to future missions. Click clicked enthusiastically. Yes, this makes excellent sense. Redundancy at the knowledge level as well as the equipment level. Multiple crew members capable of solving the same problems using different methods. The Galactic Council would find this approach very interesting, Prism added. Most species have abandoned primitive techniques entirely in favor of advanced technology. A philosophy that maintains both capabilities simultaneously could provide significant advantages in exploration scenarios. Captain Thrix nodded thoughtfully. Very well, then. Tom, I am officially requesting that you expand your role beyond cultural liaison to include survival training for the crew. In return, we will ensure you receive comprehensive education in our ship systems and scientific methods. I would be honored, Captain, Tom replied. As the Starweaver entered faster than light travel for the journey back to civilization, Tom reflected on how much had changed since he first boarded the alien vessel. His crewmates no longer looked at his worn backpack with amusement or dismissed his human equipment as primitive curiosities. Instead, they saw tools that represented a different philosophy of engineering and survival. Equipment that prioritized reliability over sophistication, adaptability over specialization. Technology that had been designed by a species that expected the universe to be hostile and had learned to thrive despite that hostility. Tom, Captain, Thrix said as he approached with a small wrapped package. I have something for you. A token of appreciation for your service and a symbol of what I learned from our experience on Kepler-7. Tom unwrapped the package to find a beautifully crafted multi-tool made from some kind of alien metal that seemed to shift color in the light. It was clearly advanced technology, but designed along human principles with multiple functions built into a single compact unit. It is a hybrid design, the captain explained, combining human multifunctionality concepts with our advanced materials. Science, it will work normally under standard conditions, but it will also continue functioning in electromagnetic storms, gravity anomalies, and other hostile environments that disable conventional equipment. Captain, this is incredible, Tom said as he examined the tool. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. You taught us that advancement is not always about complexity. Sometimes the most sophisticated approach is also the simplest one. As Tom secured the gift in his backpack alongside his traditional human equipment, he smiled at how the old and new technologies seemed to complement each other perfectly. Perhaps that was the real lesson of their mission to Kepler-7, not that simple was better than complex, or that human approaches were superior to alien ones, but that the best solutions often came from combining different perspectives and maintaining multiple options for solving the same problems. The universe was vast and full of unexpected challenges. Having more tools available for meeting those challenges could only make them stronger.